So you would have never told your sons or daughters or a combination, you would never say, hey, I want you to be of average health, of average intelligence, grow up to have an average job and have average mindset. We want them to be extraordinary. But most people, without necessarily saying those words, raise their kids just to be average, to be mediocre, to be like the Mr. and Mrs. Joneses.
Over 1,700 new millionaires are created every single day in the US alone, and more than double that across the globe. They're people from all walks of life, most of them people just like you and I. So the big question is this: how are so many people who didn't inherit money or have any special advantages overcoming the odds and becoming millionaires? That's the question, and this show will give you the answers. My name is Jeff Lerner, and welcome to Millionaire Secrets. Welcome to another episode of Millionaire Secrets. This is Jeff Lerner, your host. Always excited to be with you, getting to do a really amazing thing, which is talk to cool people and actually have it count as work. So I'm grateful to be here for another session. Today I'm joined by Bedros Keuilian. He's the founder and CEO of Fit Body Bootcamp. He's a massive Instagram influencer. You'll probably know the name and will recognize the face, like if you're seeing this on YouTube. I mean, he's a massive influencer, somebody I've followed for a long time, and I'm stoked to have him on the show. Fit Body Bootcamp was named one of Entrepreneur Magazine's 500 fastest growing franchises in the world. He's an author. He's a speaker. He's a wonderful immigrant success story, and he coaches and counsels some of the most successful people online, brands, and not just online, but people in business, authors, celebrities, NFL athletes, Navy SEALs, other massive influencers, and he's just a massive asset to the world and now to the Millionaire Secrets show. Bedros, I'm glad you're here, man. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is wonderful. So let's talk. You mentioned, I mean, I like to go back to the beginning because the reality is everything that everybody sees on Instagram and wherever else you're highly visible now, we all know that wasn't some overnight thing, right? It sources back to your origins and your challenges and your development. And so maybe you could take us through that journey. How did you, not just get here physically, I know you immigrated, but like, how did you get here, told through the lens of like, at least maybe something really challenging that you had to push through that turned you into the warrior that you are today?
Yeah, so you nailed it, right? There is no overnight success. I think we're all either a 10-year, 20-year, some of us even a 30-year overnight success. And
right.
While people may not know of the name, they may certainly understand that there's a lot of work that happens and then your name is recognized. And
right.
That work takes 10 years to 30 years. So just like anyone else who's put in the effort. And I'm sure there's people who just kind of skyrocket to success. That wasn't me. Being an immigrant from a communist country, one big challenge I had to overcome was learning the language. I had to learn the language and understand the culture and get along with the people here. Because when I came here at the age of 6 and immediately went to school, you could imagine that kids treated me differently. I was bullied and picked on, and so had to kind of get over that adversity as well. So learn the language, learn to deal with getting bullied and picked on, and which really taught me some cool skills, man. That taught me the skills of building rapport, because you typically don't want to bully or beat up people that you like. And right. I realized that I need to constantly move, because we move around a lot. As immigrants, we lived in Section 8 housing, and we moved around a lot. So I went to 3 elementary schools, 2 junior highs, and 2 high schools. And I learned very quickly that if you like me and we're friends, you're not going to bully me, even though I'm different. So the skill of developing rapport and being likable, I mustered up very quickly, which today, as an entrepreneur, and as your audience knows, as an entrepreneur, you want to be liked, you want to be a person of influence, then you need to know how to build rapport. And so that's just 2 things off the bat as a child. And then growing up, I realized, man, I am not meant to have a job. The couple of jobs that I did have as a young man just wasn't for me, Jeff. I worked at Disneyland as a fry cook and as a bouncer at a bar after that. It wasn't my thing. And then when I found personal training, because I was a pretty fat kid, and I found personal training, and it changed my life. And so I started working at LA Fitness at a big box gym. And you're making $12 an hour training people. And dude, I was so excited to wake up in the morning at 4 a.m. to get to my client at 5 a.m. Yet when I worked at Disneyland as a fry cook, I couldn't get to my 1 o'clock in the afternoon shift because I just wasn't passionate about it. Right. So, I learned very quickly that when you're excited about something, and for me, it was right around my early 20s, I realized I love to serve people and help people by way of fitness. And I love seeing that transformation. The physical transformation is great and all that, but really you got to see their emotional growth, their mental growth, confidence, self-esteem, etc. And I really got off on that. Thankfully, one of my personal training clients, his name is Jim Franco, he took this liking to me and he said, why don't you have your own studio or, personal training gym? And that led to me doing the research and him mentoring me in becoming an entrepreneur. And as you can imagine, and many of your audience can, as an entrepreneur, man, you learn so many things. And I went into the franchising world, years after I opened up my first personal training gym in San Diego. And let's see, that was around 1999, 2000. I had 5 gyms and I sold them. But dude, it was crazy because each time you grow as an entrepreneur, you also grow as a person. Because when you're self-employed, you learn to market and influence people and maybe use social media or email marketing. In my case, it was blogs before Facebook ever came around in 2008 and 9. But as soon as you get employees, you're dealing with different personalities, and you're dealing with someone being late. And no one ever says, I want to be an entrepreneur to fire people. But the reality is, as an entrepreneur, as a boss, you're going to have to fire people. So that was another adversity I had to deal with. And I'm a people pleaser, man. I want to serve people. I want to love them up. I didn't want to fire people. And so I would get passive aggressive with my employees instead of firing them or parting ways with them, or even counseling them to help them level up. And so I had to learn to become a leader. That was another barrier of growth for me. So to me, entrepreneurship has been some of the highest levels of personal growth. And the more I wanted to grow as an entrepreneur, the more I found myself growing as a father, a husband. I guess I'm not an athlete per se, but I've built an athletic body because I realized in the world of entrepreneurship, I've got to be on my A game. And for that to happen, I've got to be fit physically, mentally, emotionally. So just growth comes at so many levels, right?
Yeah. Amen. I mean, you nailed it. I as the creator of Entre Institute, that is a great summation of the message that I'm trying to really preach and impart to the world. Is like you only get so far going through course after course on how to run Facebook ads. You got to grow into the kind of person. I mean, the ultimate leverage, the ultimate value multiplier across every aspect of your business is just becoming an excellent human. It makes it easier to sell. It makes it easier to write copy. It makes it easier to engage with people. It makes it easier to attract good talent to your team. It makes it easier to negotiate. It makes it easier to deal with a pissed off customer. It makes everything better to just get better. Right.
Yeah. It does.
So,
but I also believe that so many people don't know the definition or even their own definition of what an excellent human is. Right. Because the archetypes that they've had to follow, the examples they've had were at best, I'm not trying to be mean or whatever, but at best we're mediocre. We're average people. And yet no one, do you have kids, Jeff?
I have 4. Yes, sir.
Okay. So you would have never told your sons or daughters or a combination, you would never say, hey, I want you to be of average health, of average intelligence, grow up to have an average job and have average mindset. We want them to be extraordinary. Yet the examples that most people, I'm sure not you, because I can tell you're very much of a high performer, but most people, without necessarily saying those words, raise their kids just to be average, to be mediocre, to be like the Mr. and Mrs. Joneses. And so we don't know what excellence looks like until we're exposed to someone and we go, holy cow, that person's different. And I want to know how or why or how I can be that way. And for me, it was that first mentor I had, Jim Franco. And I was like, oh, you mean I can actually wake up early and work and not just work out? Okay, that's an interesting thing. I can wake up early and journal, and I can put my thoughts on paper and analyze them. Well, that's pretty interesting.
Hmm.
I didn't know any of that stuff. I never read books until I had a mentor, and turns out you can learn someone's 20 years of life experience in 1 week by reading a book. Holy smokes, that blew my mind, man. It was just bananas.
So yeah, I was going to ask, because I mean, you're so right. And that's why I think this type of leadership and messaging has to really, really be couched inside a frame of empathy to understand, like, people, it's like, this is a commercial. Like, it's not their fault, but it is their problem.
It
Right.
is.
And it's their
Exactly.
responsibility and hopefully their opportunity. And that's, I guess what we try to do is present that opportunity. So for you, it really was the mentor. I mean, and I'm not, whether it was or wasn't your parents, but like, tell me about your parents. Like, how did you, what was the earliest influence?
Well, I'll tell you what, my parents are just amazing human beings. I mean, to be in your mid 40s, living in a communist country and making the decision that you're going to escape, like
Yeah.
that's just bananas. Like, my dad's story should be a movie. And my mom was like 1000% in support, and they pack up their 3 kids, and I was the youngest of the kids, 6 years old, and we escaped the United States. We escaped to the enemy country. And for that to happen, we had to go from Armenia into Italy, because Italy was a communist sympathizer in the 80s. And so we were able to vacation, is what my dad told the Soviet consul, for us to go into Italy. What a great story, man. Then 10 days in Italy, we end up in the American consul. And my dad's like, hey, I'm a Communist Party member. I denounce communism, and myself and my family here want to immigrate to the United States. Anything you want to know about communism and what I know about the Communist Party, I'm willing to forfeit. And so, we ended up legally entering the United States June 15th, 1980, during the peak of that Cold War.
Yeah.
Soviet Union. And coming here, it's almost like the example I give my kids. I go, son, it's not even like if mom and I decided to pack you guys up, you and your sister, and take you to Japan, because these days I can speak into my phone and translate something from English to Japanese. I go, it's more like if we went to Mars.
Yeah.
And, because I'm 46 now, about the age that my dad was. I go, imagine if we just pack you guys up, we go to Mars, and all of a sudden we have to learn Martian and learn the Martian culture and the language and the way they run things and do things. It's just bananas. What a risk. But so my dad was a risk taker. He was a visionary. Like,
Yeah.
he had a good life because he was a member of the Communist Party, and only a small percentage of people are. We had a good life there, but he wanted a great life for his kids. He wanted freedom, opportunity, and democracy. Ironically, all those things currently in the moment are at risk, but that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
And so my dad was my first example of the kind of dude I want to be like, but it was more on the lines of, I want to be a risk taker. I want to be a visionary. I want to live by the beat of my own drum, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do and the impact I wanted to make and the lifestyle I wanted to live. And that's where my rich dad, Jim Franco, came in.
Yeah.
He was the archetype for that.
Man, I'm glad I asked. What a story. And there's a number of folks that are big, prominent, wildly successful influential / influencer types. That word influencer is such a complex word now, but there's a number that are immigrant stories, that, and I think that it's such a, like, I interviewed Alex Mayer, who I'm sure you're familiar with, right? Who immigrated from Iran when himself in his teens with his buddy. And it's that same type of that story of like being led by a vision. That right there is, again, part and parcel of what I try to instill with entrepreneurs is the willingness to create a vision that might seem like a square peg in a round hole. It's probably not, if you go tell your 10 closest neighbors, most of them aren't going to probably tell you, oh, that's a great idea. I'm sure if your dad had said to his 10 closest neighbors, yeah, I think I want to take my family to America. Well, he literally probably would not have dared, right?
Right.
But I mean, this vision has to be so deeply and richly your own and no one else's. And it has to become the ultimate Occam's razor of what am I going to do? I will use this vision to slash away everything that I could do that isn't in alignment with it, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that's what entrepreneurs do. That's ultimately what it takes, and why you see entrepreneurs making all these kinds of crazy sacrifices, literally on a level of like risking life and limb to move your family across an ocean. Like, we do that kind of level of stuff all the time because we know what it is to be led by a vision. And it sounds like that's the lesson you learned. Would you agree that that's, for many people, the missing piece?
For everybody, it's the missing piece. And I'll give you an example. Vision, once you have a very clear vision, not a fuzzy vision, but a clear vision of what you want out of life, it allows you to say no to everything else so that you say yes to that one thing. And the problem is that everyone says yes to everything around them. It's not because they're like opportunity hungry. It's because they don't know what they want.
Yeah.
And if you're so clear on your vision, then you begin to develop core values. See, vision leads to values. And once you have your core values, you decide what's a non-negotiable for you. And in my value system, a non-negotiable is I will not go to the grocery store. I will not wash my car. I will not pump my own gas. I will not do my own grocery shopping. I will not clean my own room, my houses, because all those things it would take, I will not even change a light bulb in my kitchen. My wife knows that. It just gets outsourced to somebody else that works for us, because every minute I'm not doing something that's in line with my vision, I'm not living in my values. And so people do need clarity. And let me give you an example of that, by the way. What happens when we don't live in our vision, or when we don't seek out finding our vision? Another way to maybe say vision is purpose. Would you agree? Right? Yeah. Aligning with our purpose. So I bought this dog. Well, not bought. I rescued this dog. Her name is Cookie. She's part German Shepherd and part American Mastiff. Giant of a dog. Yeah. She was 8 months old when we rescued her, and already 80 pounds. Sweet, sweet dog. And we drove her from San Francisco down to Southern California here, and I bring her home, and my wife's like, well, she's a beautiful dog, but she's outpowering all of us. She's just like pulling everybody on the leash, Jeff. And so within a week, we realized that unless we teach her how to walk next to us, we're going to end up getting injured. At least my kids are. And so I bring in a dog trainer, and this dog trainer works with the dog, works with us, etc. And then she pulls me and my wife aside, and she goes, hey, listen, I got to tell you something about this beautiful part German Shepherd that you have. She needs some kind of a daily routine every day. You guys got to come out with her and kick the ball 10 to 12 times and have her go fetch that ball. And then she needs to be shepherding around something, because she's German Shepherd, she's purpose driven. And if she's not shepherding around your kids or protecting you and your family, then she's going to start getting depressed and anxious. And when she starts getting depressed and anxious, she's going to start digging holes in your beautiful backyard here. And I couldn't understand why this dog would do that. I said, can you explain to me why this dog, in the absence of purpose, would start digging holes in my backyard? She goes, well, in the absence of purpose, she starts getting depressed and anxious, and she'll start digging holes to give herself a sense of purpose, of value. Mm-hmm. And I realized in that moment that we do that as humans. We're no different than German Shepherds, man. We end up alcohol, drug abuse, infidelity, pornography, overeating, over-medicating, overstimulating, overworking, by the way, over everything, over sucking out of this goddamn social media platform, right? Just screen sucking, because we lack a sense of purpose. We haven't taken the time to develop it. And like the dog, we to go anxious, we get depressed, and we start digging holes in our life, and those holes show up as all those different vices. And so, if there's any one thing that, entrepreneur or not, people need to realize is you got to have a vision for your life. Otherwise, you begin to dig those holes, man.
That's a really beautiful metaphor. I mean, obviously that's powerful. I might, in fact, I'm declaring I'm going to steal that one. That's really good. So that, I guess begs a question. What would you say now? And first of all, I just appreciate you honing in on vision and values. We talk mission, vision, and values huge with our company. And we basically say, listen, if you don't have mission and vision and values, here's ours. You can borrow them until you build your own. But at least have something to ground yourself to. So I'm curious, what what is, with where you are now, I mean, for all that you've achieved, what is the vision that still gets you up early and out of bed and kicking ass and taking names and doing the thing when, you could be done, right? You can hang it up. What's the vision now that you're striving towards?
To be it's always been the vision that I've had ever since I was a young man looking for a wife to have kids with. I knew that I wanted to raise these amazing kids. And so we've got my 13-year-old daughter, Chloe, and my 15-year-old son, Andrew. And the vision, the mission is really to build these amazing humans that are going to do so much, like 10 times, 100 times more for the world than I ever could. Like right behind the camera here, I've got a bookshelf very similar to the one behind me, and it's got Toys for Tots, Shriners Children's Hospital, all these awards that we've gotten every year. We like a week ago, last Saturday, we were shut down Target, and we buy thousands of dollars of toys for Tots, so kids whose families can't afford Christmas gifts can have Christmas gifts. Millions of dollars donated through our organization for Shriners Children's Hospital. And then we've got 97 kids adopted through Compassion International. And while I'm going to keep doing that until I take my final breath, my mission in life, my vision isn't to make Fit Body Bootcamp the world's best and biggest and most profitable franchise. It is to raise two amazing kids who will do 10x to 100x more than I've ever done for these organizations. Because in the end of the day, we're stewards of this planet. And quite honestly, let's be very, very honest, we do this stuff because it feels good. People ask me, why do you donate to Shriners and Children's Hospital and Toys for Tots and all this? It makes me feel good. It's a sense of fulfillment. And one of the greatest human needs is a sense of significance, of fulfillment. And I've realized where mine comes from, and I do that. And my kids are very much like me and my wife. They're service driven. And so for me, like, I have to be a great role model to my kids. And so I will continue to do this until they take the reins and begin to serve this world.
I love that. I love that. And I think this is important when it comes to vision, that it's something that has an aspect of legacy or perpetuity, that it's not, I think sort of the beginner vision board is like mansion Lamborghini, and it's like, these are things that like, you may well achieve them one day. Does that mean you have, at that point, vision is achieved, check the box, no more vision? No, like, as you evolve your visioning skills, I think you start to create visions that are evergreen in nature. They're neither fully realized nor fully fallen short of. It's a growth curve in your vision, right? And that's what I'm hearing from you.
That's exactly it. I mean, I think we first define success by material goods and possessions. We later define it through experience, and then we achieve or we come close to self-actualization through impact. And I think every person has to go through that. But being self-aware of that, imagine if you could just leapfrog the stage of buying stuff where later you go, oh, gee, I just bought that stuff to show people that I'm successful, when I could have literally, what I was looking for was a feeling
right
of success, a fulfillment of significance. And I could have used that money to go get that instead.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'll share on a personal note. I'm literally right now going through a really hard personal experience with a family member who's losing a battle to cancer. And the other day I was literally just like broken down, broken down. I mean, I was just a mess. And I wanted to feel better so badly that I literally went and set up like some monthly giving subscriptions, like donations, out of total selfishness, because it made me feel better.
Sure.
To your point, it is amazing. And yeah, if we could help some, everybody's got to get their basic needs met, but like, what's that project, the happiness project or the happiness study that basically shows that like once you get above 100, I think at the time it was like 70,000, but adjusted for inflation, it'd probably be 100 now. Like once you get above that, money does not statistically correlate to happiness.
No,
it really doesn't. It's what you do with the money, right?
It can certainly ignite it, but it can also ignite despair.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I promise the Lamborghini isn't going to make you happy. I don't know. Actually, I shouldn't promise that. I don't own a Lamborghini, but if that's all you're doing with your money is buying really nice toys for yourself, you're probably going to have like a little bit of a spiritual crisis at some point. So anyway, moving on from my moralizing, what is a day in the life of Bedros look like right now? You mind sharing?
Yeah, pretty boring, and I like it that way. I am a creature of habit. I'm just like the German Shepherd, that I just want to do the same thing over and over again, and I want it predictable. So I'll wake up at between 5 and 5:30. My alarm is set for 5:30, but if my eyes pop open sometime around 5-ish, I'll just pop out of bed. I don't do the whole, I've got 10 more minutes, let me go back to sleep. That's a lesson I learned from Tom Bilyeu, and it served me well. When I wake up, I drink 30 ounces of water. Then I take my shower. I go downstairs and make a protein shake and a coffee. And then I just send out 3 gratitude text messages to 3 people in my life who I'm grateful for. Any random 3 people, just thank you for being awesome, for interviewing me, for serving me during this time, former employee, whoever. And then from there, I'll play catch with Cookie, my dog, because, well, the dog trainer told us to do that many years ago. And then by about 7 a.m., 7:30, I'm sitting down on my couch with my notepad of things to do to move my business forward. And I see over your shoulder, you've got something that says, get your shit done. And I've got a little thing called GSD. And I call it my GSD list, get shit done list. And all of us have things that we need to do every day, but the things that make you seem like you're busy and productive, but don't really move the needle. I like to work on things in the morning from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. in that 2-hour window that move the money and the meaning needle in that order. Money first, meaning second. And I say that because, and the argument could be, hey, Gandhi didn't have money and he had meaning. Yeah, I get it. The rest of us.
He didn't have money, but he had resources called a billion people listening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So in that way, I'll work on my business, the important stuff that I need to do that no one else can do, so that after that, I'll leave go to the gym at 9:30, work out, come here and shower. Then I'm ready to do stuff like this, where either I'm being interviewed on a podcast or meeting with my team for whatever, goal setting for our supplement company or an L10 meeting for our franchise, whatever it might be, to move the company needles forward as well. And then typically by 4 or 5 o'clock, I'm heading home to be dad, and maybe a piece of ping pong with my son, and he just whoops my butt on it these days. I used to be better than him, but ping pong, dinner, hikes, a little hike around town, and just to cool our mental jets before we head to the hot tub and go to bed. That's something that me and my wife do every night. We do a little hike and go in the hot tub and go to bed. And it's very predictable. And if I could do that 7 days a week, I would.
Yeah. It's so funny. You're talking about how boring your life is. I'll share this. So my team, they're like, we need more content, Jeff. We need different types of content. We want you to start a vlog. So they brought me this little vlog camera, yep. Right? If you're just listening on podcast, I'm holding up a, little handheld vlog thing with a remote control, whatever. And I'm like, who the hell wants to see? Like, I made one vlog video called A Day in the Life of an Entrepreneur. And the whole point of it was that my life is so boring and systematized that in one video, in 11 minutes, I can show you what I do all day. Right. And now they want me to make more episodes. I don't even know what to show. Anyway, so it's kind of funny that you're saying that, because that's the thing, man. There's this juxtaposition now in the world where, entrepreneurship is supposed to look like, a cover shoot for Fast Company magazine or something, but that is like not what entrepreneurship looks like. I mean, you mentioned L10 meetings. Does that mean, do you use EOS, the EOS framework?
Yeah, for all my companies. Yeah.
It's literally about making the work, not only your work, but the work of your entire team, as boring and predictable as possible. Because frankly, and people, I don't want life to be boring. Boredom, there's this saying, Jocko Willink says, discipline equals freedom. I would say boredom, and not boredom, but like in a way boredom, because the itch of boredom, you end up scratching with innovation.
Yeah.
But you have to get your business to be as boring and predictable as possible so that you can have that itch to go, okay, I'm going to create something new that doesn't just introduce more chaos into already chaos, right?
Correct. Because that's how people begin to self-destruct.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. And actually, before I even heard L10 and thought EOS, I was going to ask you about turning. So to complete the story, you had 5 gyms in San Diego, you sold them, and then you started your fitness franchise?
No. So after I sold my 5 gyms were called Premier Results. They were just one-on-one personal training that we offered. And I had 60 personal trainers working for me throughout my 5 small gyms.
Mm-hmm.
And when I sold those, it was around 2003, 2004. And I went into coaching and consulting personal trainers and gym owners. And I did that for about 5 years. And then, of course, once the economy crashed in 2008, I realized one-on-one personal training is pretty much dead. And if I could just take that outdoor boot camp and bring it indoors and systematize it, I think I'll have created something new and different. And that's when I took that outdoor boot camp and brought it indoors. And we literally innovated a whole new thing. You know, until then, you've been in the industry and around long enough where, you know, the outdoor boot camps were always kind of like a redheaded stepchild in the fitness industry. A personal trainer had their one-on-one clients, but on the weekends they might run a boot camp and make a few $100 extra.
Right.
I knew that we could actually build a business where I did the math and it worked out where, gosh, we can have a 7-figure boot camp. And now we do. We have plenty of 6-figure and some 7-figure generating locations per year. And it's a byproduct of just number of bodies times number of dollars times retention, referrals, results, etc. But all this to say that we launched Fit Body Bootcamp after the economy crashed. So there you take a disaster and you go, the money didn't leave, it just exchanged hands. Who has the money now? Okay, people have money, they just have less of it. So I've got to make personal training more affordable and more convenient. So instead of one-on-one, let me make it one-on-many, bring it indoors so it becomes weatherproof. Goes back to what you said. I had such a boring life because my life was so predictable that I was able to go, well, I think it's time for a new innovation in my industry, considering no one could afford $600 to $800 a month for a one-on-one personal trainer anymore. Mm-hmm. And so by 2011, we launched Fit Body Bootcamp and we became a franchise by 2012. And it's kind of been this uphill swing since then. Yeah.
So, okay, I appreciate the story. And it's funny, I have a friend who right around that same time had that exact same epiphany. In his, you know, for whatever reason, different market, different timing, whatever, didn't necessarily get the same traction with it, but it was like, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, that was the right idea at the time, it seems. So, but to then turn that into a franchise, that's the reason I kind of honed in on this story. You know, franchise equals systems, processes, you know, standardized procedures, operations manuals, SOPs, like it's all about making it as formulaic as possible, basically making it as boring and predictable and almost learnable by rote as possible.
Yeah.
Is that something that you've always had an aptitude for, the systemization of collaborative work?
No, but I knew I'm a great visionary. I can, my wife says it best. She says, you can see around corners. Just like with this pandemic, as soon as they go, hey, and I love Trump, by the way, and I'll openly say this, I love Donald Trump. And Donald Trump even said, hey, by Easter, which was in April, America will be back to business. We're only going to shut down for 2 weeks. And I was like, no, we're not, because I never trust the government, because I come from a communist country and I always assume the worst, but am optimistic and thrive for the best. And so I said, guys, we're going to shut down our gyms for 2 weeks, hope that we're going to open our gyms throughout Canada and the US. However, we're going to just pivot massively to online coaching and become the best damn online coaches ever. Here we are 9 months later, and gyms opened back up, went back out, lockdowns again. And so all this to tell you that I'm a visionary and I see around corners because that's my gift. That's my unique human skill. But I surround myself with people who are massively organized, systematized. Behind this bookshelf and around that corner are about 40 people who are just so organized and systematized that they will take the chaos that I produce here and put it in order and make it work. And I love that I know what my weakness is and I don't try and strengthen it. I just find people who can reinforce it.
Yeah. Have you read the book Rocket Fuel?
I have not.
Okay. So, what you're describing, at least in the language of that book, is the visionary integrator archetype. And I will say, my business, one of the, people have seen Jeff, like 2.5 years ago, Jeff Lerner didn't exist in mainstream consciousness online, or didn't have a show, didn't have a brand, didn't have social profiles, didn't have any of it. I was a decent digital marketer. I'd made some money, but that doesn't count for much. And people look at the growth of my business now and they're like, what's happening? What's the X factor? I will tell you straight up, the pairing of a visionary and an integrator, or multiples thereof. But like, I'm a visionary, same as you. I don't try to be good at processes. I can fake it, but I hooked up with a brilliant integrator. He's my business partner, and life is just easy now. It's like, I don't feel guilty for having ideas, because I used to not want to have as many ideas, because when I have ideas, I suddenly felt responsible for implementing them. And I didn't want to be one of those losers that thinks things and doesn't take action. But I also recognize my own limitations on action taking, where I'm only going to be able to take this to a point, and then it's going to collapse under the weight of my lack of structure. So do you have a clear cut, now that you know the term from the book, integrator, like an operator, a technician in your business?
Yeah, in fact, I've got three, because I've got three businesses. I've got Fit Body Bootcamp, the franchise, Truline, the supplement company, and then Empire Coaching, which is my mastermind private coaching, and the project that I run, which is a men's development program. And so each of those have a leader who are the integrators. And it really gives me the opportunity to have free reign in visionary skills.
So I'm curious, and I'm asking totally, although I partnered with an amazing integrator, but definitely the world probably needs more integrators than visionaries. And sadly, I think it's kind of flipped. You have more people trying to be visionaries because they think that's the sexy thing. But honestly, life as a visionary without good integration is really frustrating.
It is.
So I think so I'm curious, where do you go to find great integrators? Let's say you're starting a new business. What's your strategy there?
So I'll kind of talk about my most recent business, the one we started 16 months ago, Truline Supplements. In fact, about 4 months ago, it hit a pace of $1 million a month in sales. COVID helped us there, right? COVID, right. Everyone wants to buy greens and immune boosting products, et cetera. So when I was ready to start Truline Supplements, I knew that I didn't have the bandwidth to do it myself. So I just put on my stories and on my social media platforms, and I'm unreasonable to work with and work for. Have extremely high expectations of people and myself. I'm looking to make an obscene amount of money in the supplement industry, and I'm looking for someone to lead that company, and they will get equity in it, but they have to work here with me and not be, virtual, et cetera. They have to be here in the building with me, and we're going to build this brand really big, release it to our franchises first, and then release it to mainstream second. I said, if that's you, and it's probably not, send me a DM and tell me why you think it's you. And so whatever, about 150 DMs came in, and my team went through the DMs, and they brought it down to like 9 people. And of those 9 people, one guy really stood out, Aaron, and he's currently our VP of the company and a dear friend of mine. And typically you have like-minded people following you. Now, if you're brand new and you're like, I don't have a company, then you're probably going to want to recruit. So my strategy would be to recruit. I would go to LinkedIn and I would look for chief operating officers of supplement companies and nutrition companies, et cetera, and trying to recruit them and bring them into my vision. But fortunately for me in this particular case, and we have done plenty of recruiting like that. In fact, one of my private coaching clients has a $9 million business, and he wants to beef up his customer support and customer experience. And he goes, I want customer support and customer experience like Amazon offers. I'm like, cool. Go on LinkedIn, see who the top people are in Amazon support, the VP of Amazon support, the COO of Amazon support, et cetera, and send them a message and find them and recruit them. And he's like, holy crap, that's brilliant. And I'm like, that's just a great strategy. And so whether you use social media like I did, if you've got the following and the bandwidth, or you use a combination of the two to recruit, that's what you do. And listen, I've also done that, and I've gotten some duds as well. And so you just have to part ways with the duds and go, all right, that was just, somebody that didn't work out. We'll find someone else.
Yeah, I have learned that lesson for sure. Hire slow and fire fast.
Indeed.
And I will say this, just from my own iteration and progress, the more you build great culture, which is mission, vision, and values amplified by people across your organization, the easier it becomes to attract the right people, repel the wrong people, and have sort of like a qualitative mechanism for rejecting the wrong people, even if they want in. It's like they just won't fit, you know. So maybe you could speak to that. I've watched enough of your stuff to suggest or to suspect that you probably have pretty strong culture in your organizations.
We do. Culture is and for us, it's a double-edged sword sometimes, because I get it. Being a public person, and we have very public companies, people aspire to want to look. You see someone on stage at a concert, and you're like, oh my God, I'd love to be on stage and get so much love from the audience and tour the world. What they don't see is then that person on stage also has to go and shake hands and kiss babies and sign autographs until he's exhausted and he could never do enough. And then he goes to a lonely bedroom or a lonely tour bus to then only wake up the next day somewhere else and deal with lawsuits and whatever, right? There's always the other side. And so when people see the intensity and the speed at which we work on, they go, man, I want to be part of what you're doing. And so they will apply because they are aspirational and they aspire to be like us. Even during the final interview, I do the third and final interview. So they do a primary interview with the department head, and then they do a second interview with the VPs of the company. Then they do a final interview with me. I just tell them, look, I'm unreasonable to work with. I'm a horrible, horrible person. If you follow me on social media and it's because you see the best of me, after all this that I've told you, do you still want to work here? Yes, great. And just a couple of weeks ago, we had a guy after 8 days. He's like, you know what? I can't be here. I'm out. A woman that we hired the same day, Lauren, gave her the same speech on the same day. She's an absolute beast. She's probably more type A than I am. And just a go-getter, has to clean out her inbox. Otherwise, she can't go to sleep. Like, that's the guy I am. And so we do have very strong core values, and we have 3 very specific core values, which is to drive change, exceed expectations, and be relentlessly disciplined. And that last one is what gets people every time, because they think they're relentlessly disciplined until they show up here and they realize how intense and disciplined we really are.
I'm going to ask you to just say those words, say those 3 values again.
Drive change, exceed it, and drive change, because the world is moving faster and evolving faster than it ever has. So if you're afraid of change, like 99.9% of the world, you don't belong here. So you need to drive change, embrace change, love change, and do everything you can to be on the front lines of change for us.
Yeah.
Number 1. 2, exceed expectations. Competition is steep. People are getting, better stuff for less price these days. So we're going to promise a unicorn and deliver a magical unicorn, not promise a unicorn and deliver a donkey like people normally do. So you have to exceed expectations and not just meet them. And finally, be relentlessly disciplined, because I just get pissed off when people are losers. And most losers are not disciplined.
Yeah, I love it. Pull no punches. The reason I asked you to repeat those, because, that's it. The show's called Millionaire Secrets, right? Like, what's the secret? How do I do it? That's it. You should drive change, exceed expectations, and be relentlessly disciplined. And I would argue, let's say the quote average person out there, they're like, well, I just want to do something. I want to work my way out of my job and start a business, or maybe make an impact or make a difference, or, have my wife stop hurting my feelings because she thinks I'm lame, like whatever, right? Whatever the driver is.
Sure.
You might not be ready to go, well, I don't know how to drive change. Like, I'm not there in the world. You are there in your world. Driving change can start right here. Exceeding expectations can start right here. Change what you expect. Over time, you will get what you expect, right? Raise your expectations and then start exceeding them. Drive change in your own life. And by the way, those 2 things, especially if they start right here at home, are going to require a massive up level in the relentlessness and consistency of your discipline. Like, I don't think, Bedros, that you just articulated the core values for you and your particularly successful companies. I think you just articulated a framework for any person who's listening to this to wake up tomorrow and have a completely different life starting now.
Oh, that's absolutely right. You nailed it, man. All change starts here. All expectations have to be, rise here. Like if I have low expectations of myself, I can't come into your company and try and like exceed expectations. If my expectations of my car's dirty and my clothes are disheveled, if I have low expectations here, I'm just going to deliver low expectations there. And so you nailed it. Anyone that thinks that it has to be some kind of multi-billion-dollar company, not true. Just start with you, man. Drop that 10 pounds that you've been holding on to forever.
Yeah. Amen. So tell me real quick, I want to, I know we're running out of time. So I want to make sure you get to talk about what I sense is a real passion project of yours, which is the project, right? This men's workshop that you're doing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So again, I'm just one of those people. I don't want to be defined as, oh, you're the franchise guy. No, I'm the guy that whatever I want to be. So I'm the supplement guy. I'm the serving people guy. So I will serve people through fitness with my franchise, through changing their mindset, through my coaching, through supplements and their health, their health through my supplements. And of course, I believe most men need to learn to un-F themselves. And men especially, we tend to suffer in silence when we've experienced trauma in our life. That trauma could show up as sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse. It doesn't really matter. It still lights up the same part of the brain, which is the fight or flight system. And you begin to show up, fists up to everybody, to your spouse, to your business partners, to your customers, to your employees. And if you show up fists up to the world and protected, you're never going to thrive and succeed. And most of us want to really thrive and succeed in the 5 F's: family, faith, fitness, finance, so that we can have fulfillment, that 5th F. And if that's the case, then where women are really good in reading self-help books and then talking to their friends about what's bothering them, etc., men want to keep everything superficial. So I created a 75-hour experience. We take 20 guys at a time for 75 hours. My head instructor is a former Navy SEAL. The other instructor is a very angry, horrible Marine, just angry at the world. And then we've got a jujitsu guy, hand-to-hand combat, and a former SWAT operator, and myself as kind of the business and peak performance coach. And for 75 hours, we pour into these men physically, mentally, emotionally. The physical part is the Marine and the SEAL just beat the hell out of them through just different evolutions and exercises. We have a lot of desk time and journaling where we, rewrite their eulogy. We might literally talk about the worst experience that you've had in your life. We do that. And, whether they've been molested, raped, whatever's happened in their life. And you end up discovering your superpowers, letting go of your toxic beliefs, and showing up as a better husband, father, leader, entrepreneur, and finally having that legacy and significance that you deserve, but you've been sabotaging.
That sounds really, really amazing. Where do you, I assume it's done at a certain location?
Yeah, I've got a giant compound out here in Chino, right across the street from the Chino State Prison, perfectly designed. So the cops in the city of Chino Hills, and Newport Beach, because we do take them to the ocean and put them through water torture, hence the Navy SEAL. Yeah. So the cops in all those cities are on board with us, and so they leave us alone while we put these guys through all this stuff for 75 hours.
Wow, that sounds amazing. How can people get more information about that?
Best way is just to reach out to me on social media, like on Instagram at Bedros Keuilian, or on whatever platform, or they could just look up Modern Day Night Project.
Modern Day Night Project. Okay, cool. And where can people learn more about your supplements too?
Trulean, Trulean, Trulean.com. And just really natural, very clean, no artificial sweeteners and all that stuff. Just very high end. Like if I was going to give my mom, my sister, my wife the best supplements on the planet, how would I create that from the ground up? And that's what I did.
Wow. Super cool, man. Well, I'm going to wrap this because I know you've got another meeting you have to get to. And I'm just so grateful that we got this much of your really valuable time. This has been a tremendous interview, tremendous conversation. I feel tremendously enriched. And just, I'm grateful that you made the time for Millionaire Secrets, man. Thanks for being here.
Jeff, thank you for the opportunity, man. And anything I could do for you, just reach out.
Yeah, I certainly will. Thanks so much. And to everyone out there watching and listening, We appreciate you. You are the best part of the Millionaire Secrets Show and why we do what we do every day. I will see you on the next episode. Thank you for watching Millionaire Secrets. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and leave us a comment below. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you know whenever we release a new episode. Also, if you want to learn the fastest way to become a millionaire in the new economy, click the link in the description below to claim your free copy of my book, The Millionaire Shortcut. And don't forget, Millionaire Secrets is available on all the major podcast platforms as well. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you can listen on the go. Thanks for watching.